The first thing Victor Hale said to the aliens was, "If you're here for peace, you've taken a wrong turn. Earth doesn't do peace. We do duct tape, bad TV, and grudges." He smiled while blood dripped from his knuckles, and a crystalline giant staring back at him tilted its head, as if unsure whether to laugh or incinerate him. For the record, it chose incineration. The beam of light seared the air where Victor had been standing, scorching the cracked subway wall and illuminating the graffiti. And oh gods, and oh masters, accept coffee. He dove behind an overturned train seat, lungs burning, heart hammering. Somewhere overhead, the crystalline titan's voice rang like church bells crushed under steel. "You will kneel." Victor smirked, dragging himself upright. "Yeah, heard that one before. My ex-wife had better aim." From the shadows, Elena Voss whispered through cracked lips, "You should stop provoking it." She crouched low, her eyes reflecting faint blue light from the retinal augments she had soldered in herself. She had the stillness of someone raised underground, in places where noise meant death. At 29, she looked older only in her eyes, calculating, exacting, patient like a machine. Nearby, Darius Kane steadied his rifle against a steel beam. Scar tissue pulled at his jaw when he scowled, his heavy frame a monument to battles he'd tried to forget. Less flirting, more surviving, he growled, though the corner of his mouth twitched at Victor's sarcasm. Darius was 41 and built like a ruined bunker, each scar another story that ended badly. And then there was Reina Solis. She knelt by a wounded refugee, her hands slick with blood as she stitched with trembling fingers. The faint scent of burning herbs clung to her hair, her nervous remedy, though Victor called it refugee camp incense. Her temper was as fast as her compassion, and both clashed hard against Victor's cold pragmatism. "Stop making jokes, Hale," she snapped. "People are dying. They've been dying since birth," Victor muttered. "At least I'm making them laugh along the way." The truth was that Victor hadn't laughed in years, not since the fire that stole his family. He lived by fists, steel, and the hollow rhythm of survival. If sarcasm was all he had left, then sarcasm would be his rebellion. Above them, the alien fleet blotted out the stars. Their ships gleamed like cathedrals carved from prisms, vast and silent as judgment. The galactic enforcers had descended upon Earth not with fire, but with inevitability. They promised order, safety, a future, at the cost of obedience. Most bent the knee. The rest whispered resistance. Victor spat in their direction and became a whisper made flesh. Tonight, that whisper met its storm. Commander Xylert towered in the chamber, his crystalline body refracting light until it seemed the air itself bled blue. To his left, Seraphis lingered, a slender strategist with 4 glowing eyes that never blinked. To his right, Kael'thar, the warrior, armored and hulking, his every movement a hymn to violence. "You fight," Xyler intoned, his voice crushing the silence. "But resistance is dust. Serve us, or be ground into history." Victor stepped forward, shoulders squared, blood still wet on his hands. "Funny thing about dust, we breathe it. We choke on it. We keep going anyway." He raised a jagged pipe he called a weapon, duct tape battery humming faintly. "You want me? Come take me." The fight erupted in thunder. Darius's rifle cracked, spitting steel into crystalline flesh. Elena's ancient laptop flickered with stolen alien code, shorting out their comms grid. Reina dragged the wounded into cover, her curses as sharp as her sutures. And Victor charged headlong into Kael'thar's strike, sparks screaming as blade met steel pipe. The warrior's strength was inhuman, his every strike enough to shatter bone. Yet Victor met him blow for blow, fueled not by hope, but by spite. Each punch split his knuckles. Each swing sent pain howling through his ribs. Still he fought. When Kael'thar's blade bit his shoulder, Victor laughed through the agony, blood dripping down his arm. "That all you got, Shiny?" For the first time, Kael'thar hesitated. In those fractured seconds, Victor rammed the jury-rigged pipe into the ground and screamed, "Boomstick!" The duct-taped cell detonated, light and heat swallowing the chamber. Aliens reeled. But humans don't win without loss. When the dust cleared, Reyna staggered under the weight of a dying boy. She screamed at Victor, tears cutting through soot. "You call this victory? Look at him. Look at what your madness costs." Victor froze, staring at the child's pale face. His fists trembled, rage and grief tearing through him. He wanted to shout that survival demanded sacrifice, that mercy had no place here. But the words died in his throat. For one unbearable moment, he saw his son's face instead. Silence fell. Elena typed frantically, her eyes darting, refusing to look at him. Darius's hand rested heavy on his shoulder, grounding him in the chaos. Even Kael'thar, watching from the far side of the chamber, lowered his blade, not in surrender, but in recognition. Something in this human's madness mirrored his own code of honor. Then Zyler's voice returned, sharper than glass. "You defy us still. Very well. We will grind your species to ash." And the enforcers withdrew, leaving the humans bleeding but alive. The chamber shook with the echoes of retreat. Victor leaned against the rubble, chest heaving. Around him, the others gathered in silence, their faces masks of exhaustion and doubt. The fight was far from over. Tonight was no triumph, only survival. Yet whispers would spread from this place. Whispers of a killer who spat in the face of inevitability, who laughed at conquest, who bled but did not kneel. Whispers of humans who fought not for victory, but for dignity. Victor sat heavily, staring at the scorched graffiti on the subway wall. No gods, no masters, except coffee. The word seemed almost holy now. He chuckled, though it hurt. "Guess that makes us prophets of caffeine." Elena glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Darius shook his head but smiled faintly. Reyna, still clutching her patient, whispered bitterly, "Or martyrs." Victor closed his eyes. For a moment, the weight of everything pressed down, the fire that took his family, the endless war, the wounds that never healed. He thought he had nothing left to give the world but violence. Yet here he was, bleeding with others who still stood beside him. Perhaps that was something. And so I tell you this. If you wish to know humanity, do not look at our weapons or our ruins. Look instead at the man who laughs while bleeding, the woman who saves enemies out of compassion, the soldier who fights though already broken, the hacker who watches everything but says nothing. Look at us in the ashes, taping the world together with spite and hope. That is where we endure. That is who we are. Victor Hale once said, "If humanity ever dies, it won't be from alien lasers. It'll be from expired microwave burritos." He said this while chewing on one, ash and rubble still in his hair, and the men and women around him laughed because they were too tired not to. The truth was simpler and crueler. Humanity wasn't dying fast enough for the aliens' liking, and that made the enforcers angry. Angry aliens were always worse than hungry ones. Weeks had passed since the stand in the subway, and the war had twisted into something raw. Cities became carcasses of glass and concrete, their towers blackened like the teeth of giants. Old stadiums turned into barricades, markets into black market armories, and human resilience into an inside joke only survivors could understand. The four who led them, Victor, Elena, Darius, and Reyna, were not friends, not really. They were bound by necessity and sharpened by suspicion. But when they walked through the gutted streets of old Warsaw, refugees whispered their names like prayers or curses. Victor Hale was the outlaw who fought without fear. Elena Voss was the ghost-eyed hacker who bent alien networks to her will. Darius Kane, the scarred soldier who still carried himself like a commander even when no army remained. And Reyna Solis, the medic who raged against cruelty with the same fervor Victor raged against the universe. Their enemy adapted quickly. Commander Zyler tightened his grip, ordering crystal sentinels to patrol the skies. Seraphis wove whispers into human ears, offering food, shelter, and false promises of coexistence. Many defected, tired of hunger and ash. And Kael'thar? He waited, blades restless, curiosity gnawing at his honor like rust. It was in this world that Victor's band found themselves cornered. A signal from the underground claimed that survivors had been captured in New Berlin, their bodies used as examples. Elena wanted to investigate. Darius muttered about suicide missions. Reyna refused to ignore it. Victor, against every survival instinct left in him, agreed. The journey into New Berlin was like walking into the throat of a dead god. Towers leaned at impossible angles, streets littered with ash so fine it choked the lungs. The air smelled of melted metal and burned flesh. Alien patrols moved with crystalline precision, their eyes gleaming like broken stars. Subtlety would help. Elena whispered as Victor cracked his knuckles loud enough to echo. Subtlety never freed a prisoner. Victor shot back, pulling his knife free. Darius scanned the ruins with the weary patience of a man who had marched too many times in his certain death. You two argue like a married couple. Remind me of boot camp. Nobody survived boot camp. Reyna pressed herbs into a roll and lit it, smoke curling from her lips. If we make it out, I'm quitting. I'll open a clinic somewhere without aliens or men who think bleeding is a strategy. Victor smirked. That's everywhere, document. You'll be busy forever. Their bickering fell silent as they reached the square. The enforcers had turned it into a spectacle. Crystalline pylons stabbed into the earth, pulsing with alien energy. Between them hung cages, and in those cages humans starved, bruised, yet unbroken, sang old folk songs with cracked voices. It was defiance dressed in sorrow, and it made Victor's blood ignite. Xyler stood at the center, his crystalline body gleaming like a cathedral of knives. His voice rolled across the square. Observe, humans. This is the fate of defiance. Surrender, and you may live. Resist, and you will be displayed as shadows of a broken species. Victor didn't wait. He hurled a grenade made from a repurposed coffee maker. The explosion tore through the air, knocking crystalline guards into shards. Elena hacked the pylons, making them flicker like dying stars. Darius unleashed his rifle, each shot punctuating years of buried rage. Reyna rushed to the cages, hands bleeding as she tore at locks. Chaos was their ally, but only for moments. Then Kael'thar appeared, stepping into the smoke, blade humming with alien resonance. He moved like thunder given flesh, scattering rubble with each stride. His gaze locked on Victor. You again, Kael'thar rumbled. You fight like one who seeks death. What? Victor tightened his grip on his knife, the smirk on his face hiding the tremor in his ribs. Because I don't know how to stop. Because if you're going to erase my species, I want you to bleed for it. And then the duel began. Kael'thar's blade slashed arcs of light, each swing heavy enough to fell a tree. Victor ducked, rolled, countered with steel that barely scratched crystalline armor. But he never stopped pressing, every strike fueled by spite and memory. Around them, the square became a blur of screams, gunfire, and alien shrieks. Elena shouted coordinates, guiding him through the chaos. Darius covered his flank, firing until his rifle clicked dry. Reyna dragged prisoners free, sobbing with fury as the wounded clung to her. But Kael'thar was relentless. A blow caught Victor's shoulder, shattering bone. He stumbled, blood soaking his chest. Kael'thar raised his blade high, the killing strike poised. And then, hesitation. The warrior stared into Victor's eyes and saw not fear, not despair, but the impossible ember of defiance. That damn human thing. Fighting not because he could win, but because surrender was unthinkable. Kael'thar lowered his blade. You should be dead, yet you endure. I will not end one who refuses the inevitable. Xyler's roar split the square, fury shaking the pylons. Kael'thar, obey. But the warrior turned away, his silence louder than rebellion. The human struck back with renewed ferocity. Elena overloaded the pylons, sending arcs of lightning across the enforcers. Darius clubbed one with the butt of his rifle, snarling curses between ragged breaths. Reyna dragged the last prisoner out, her tears burning as much as her rage. And Victor, broken, bloodied, half-conscious, stood tall, raising his knife toward Xyler. You wanted examples? Here we are. The alien commander withdrew, his fury a promise of storms to come. The square fell silent except for the groans of survivors and the crackle of dying pylons. When it was over, they gathered in the ruins, bruised and hollow. Reyna bound Victor's wounds, her hands trembling. You'll kill yourself fighting like this. Victor grinned through blood. Already dead. Document. Just taking my time lying down. Elena sat beside him, eyes scanning the shadows. Kael'thar spared you. That changes things. Darius lit a cigarette, exhaling smoke into the night. Changes nothing. The war's just getting worse. But maybe, just maybe, it means we've got a chance. Victor leaned back against rubble, staring at the stars peeking through smoke. They looked cold, indifferent, unreachable. And yet, something inside him stirred. Not hope, not yet, but something like it. So hear this, reader. The measure of humanity is not in victories, but in how often we rise when beaten. In the way we fight when surrender would be easier. In the laughter cracked between wounds. The mercy shown to enemies, the spite turned into fire. That is what frightens conquerors most. Not our strength, but our refusal to kneel. Victor Hale once joked, if the aliens want to end humanity, they should just cut off our coffee supply. He said it standing on the shattered roof of a burned-out library, the night air thick with smoke and static from orbiting warships. He grinned like a man with nothing left to lose, but his eyes betrayed the weight of too many dead. And when the sky split with blue fire, even Victor went silent, because the enforcers had finally decided Earth itself was negotiable. The weapon was called the Core Shard. Seraphis leaked its existence with deliberate malice, whispering that one strike could shatter the planet's mantle. The choice was simple. Humanity would surrender, or Earth would die screaming. For days, rumors churned through the ruins. Some believed the aliens were bluffing. Others prepared to kneel. And yet, amid the fear, the rebels gathered for one last stand in the skeleton of New Berlin. Victor stood at their center, bandages binding his ribs, knife strapped to his hip like a sacred relic. Elena sat against a cracked wall, eyes flickering with code, her laptop's glow casting shadows across her sharp face. Darius cleaned his rifle with steady, scarred hands, muttering curses like prayers. Reyna moved among the wounded, her voice gentle but her temper still quick, swatting Victor's hand away when he tried to help. And Kael'thar, once their enemy, stood watch, crystalline body gleaming faintly in the dim light. His silence was a declaration. He had chosen humanity, or at least the one mad human who refused to die. Any chance we can hack this doomsday toy of theirs? Victor asked, breaking the tension. Elena's gaze didn't lift from her screen. It's not a toy. It's a planet killer. And maybe, if I can get close enough. How close? She finally met his eyes, her voice dry. Inside the launch chamber, Darius groaned. Of course. Never easy. Why don't we just storm the gates while we're at it? Victor smirked. You read my mind, soldier. The plan was lunacy, but lunacy was all they had left. They moved through the ruins as shadows, slipping past patrols, fighting when silence failed. Every step toward the alien citadel felt like climbing into the throat of death. The tower loomed ahead, crystalline spires piercing the clouds, its walls humming with power. At its heart pulsed the core shard, energy coiling like lightning trapped in glass. Elena whispered, if I can get 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a lifetime, Darius cut in, or a death sentence. Reyna's hand lingered on Victor's arm. Her eyes, fierce and tired, searched his face. You don't always have to throw yourself into the fire. Victor shook his head. Fire's all I know, document. They breached the tower in an explosion of steel and defiance. Elena sprinted to the console, fingers flying across alien code. Darius laid down, covering fire, each shot echoing like a drumbeat of survival. Reyna dragged the wounded to safety, shouting curses that could blister stone. And Victor charged headlong into Kael'thar's old brethren, blades and fists carving a path through crystalline flesh. Then came Xyler. The commander descended like a storm, his crystalline body burning with cold fire, his voice a cathedral collapsing into ruin. You cannot win, human. You are broken things clinging to ashes. Surrender, and I will spare the remnants of your kind. Victor spat blood. Spare us? That's rich. We don't need your pity. We've got duct tape. And the duel began. Kael'thar stepped forward, blade flashing, but Victor raised a hand. He's mine. Xyler struck with the weight of inevitability. His blows cracked bone, shattered stone, sent Victor reeling. But Victor kept rising, fists trembling, knife gleaming. He fought with every scar, every memory, every ounce of rage left in him. The outlaw who once killed for survival now fought for something greater, for dignity, for spite, for the right of humanity to exist on its own terms. Each strike was agony. Each breath tasted of iron. Yet he laughed through broken ribs, mocking the commander even as blood poured down his chest. Is that all? I've had hangovers worse than you. Xyler roared, crystalline form fracturing with fury. He raised his blade high for the killing blow. And then, silence. Because Kael'thar stepped between them, his blade meeting Xyler's with a scream of light. Enough, the warrior growled. Strength is not domination. Strength is endurance. And this human endures more than you will ever understand. The clash shook the chamber. Elena shouted triumphantly as the console flickered, her hack complete. The core shard's energy sputtered, collapsing in on itself like a dying star. Darius bellowed for retreat, covering them as enforcers faltered in confusion. Reyna dragged Victor to his feet, her tears hidden by smoke. Together, humans and defected alien fought their way out as the citadel imploded, shards of crystal raining down like a broken sky. When the dust settled, the weapon was gone, the enforcers routed, and Xyler vanished into the void, his defeat not final, but undeniable. Humanity had survived the impossible, but survival was never victory. They gathered in the ruins once more, battered and bleeding. Reyna pressed bandages against Victor's wounds, her anger softer now, tinged with fear. You're going to get yourself killed one day. Victor coughed a laugh. One day. Doc, I've been dead inside for years. Elena leaned against the rubble, her eyes softer than usual. Don't make jokes. Not tonight. Darius lit a cigarette, smoke curling into the ash-thick air. Don't scold him. It's the only way he keeps standing. Kael'thar stood apart, watching the stars with unreadable eyes. At last, he spoke. Your kind should not have survived this. And yet you did. Perhaps there is strength in defiance after all. Victor looked up at the night sky, scarred and endless. We're not strong. We're just too stubborn to quit. That's what scares you aliens, isn't it? That we'll keep standing long after the smart thing would have been to kneel. The others fell silent. There was no victory feast, no celebration. Only exhaustion, blood, and the faintest ember of something like hope. Humanity was still alive. That was enough. So listen, reader, and carry this truth. Our power is not in perfect victories or unbroken bodies. It is in the way we laugh when the world demands silence, in the way we rise when everything tells us to fall, in the way we cling to dignity even in the ruins. We are human. We endure. And against the cold infinity of the stars, sometimes that is the greatest defiance of all.